How you doing, everybody?
Hey,
Good
Coach,
afternoon,
how are
Coach.
you? How was your practice today? We heard you were running a little bit more competition, offense versus defense today.
We did. It wasn't any longer than the practices we had on Monday and Thursday this week. Just more interaction, which was good. We needed it, and I think our guys pick up the energy and enthusiasm when we're competing that much. So hopefully we got better.
You feel like your offense is starting to come together with who you're looking at the offensive line and in the backfield?
We're getting a lot of guys reps, really trying to balance the reps, and even if there's an unbalance, we're trying to give more reps to the young guys who haven't played. Try to figure out where we're going to draw that depth from. That position, as you know, those guys, it's pretty rough and tumble, and they get beat up, and we don't often play with the same 5 people through an entire season. So we really value having enough guys to play and be able to keep the game going. So I think there's a good group of guys. They're well coached. You know, Coach Davis, Coach Tuatelli do a fantastic job coaching those guys. But I think we're finding out a lot about guys at every position, because we are rolling a lot of people in there in the competitions.
Very good. And with Nate Woody's first spring practice, is this a chance for him to expand what he would like to teach the defensive players, defensive unit?
I know that Nate feels that way, that they weren't able to completely open up all that they had hoped to do. It's hard to do that with no spring practice and just some summer meetings and a preseason camp. But he did a great job. So did the defensive staff, and hopefully we'll improve. We're certainly losing some good players that we had counted on, and counting on some of these other guys to step up and take their place.
Coach, this is Charles Rivas of GoBlackKnights.com. Good afternoon.
Charles.
Can you talk a little bit about the progression of wide receiver Michael Roberts and slot back Brandon Walters this spring, and what roles do you see them playing going into the 2021 season?
It's hard to believe that both of those guys are going to be seniors.
Yeah.
Mike seems like he's been around here longer because he went to the prep school, and he's such a presence. You know, just his frame and who he is as a person. He's a great kid and very vocal, and has played a lot of football for us, and just a hard worker, and cares about this team deeply. And so it's good to see him kind of leading that group. Brandon is the one I can't believe is a senior here already. And he has quietly meant so much to this team, what he did last year. And I know what he'll do to not only play and be productive that way, but the leadership. He's such a professional kid. He can do everything we ask. I mean, he's a good blocker. He's good with the ball, can catch. Just really a good all-around player, and just not a better kid on our team than him. Just a fine young man.
Great. And you said this often, year after year, that each team kind of develops their own identity. But from a comparative standpoint, you have a very talented group of a quartet of linebackers coming back: Smith, Jones, Carter, McDonald, as well as some of the younger guys being able to contribute. But can you talk about that group from a potential standpoint against the infamous Jack attack with Tenth, King, Alkerman, and Brinson?
It's hard to compare players. It really is to say which tandem was the best, which guy was the best player. We've had some really good players there, and certainly Spencer Jones is a guy that we anticipate being a very productive player for us. But I don't know that any one of those linebackers we have had is better than Eric Smith. He is just a tremendous football player. Tough. When he hits people, they stop moving. There are some guys who just hit really thick and really heavy, and he's one of those guys. Great effort guy, always going hard, even in practice. I mean, sometimes we got to kind of just make sure we remind him the tempo of a drill that might not be full speed. He's just really aggressive player, tough player, good tackler, outstanding player. And there's a group of guys there that I think are going to be battling and challenging for the other linebacker spot, along with Spencer Jones, that we feel good about. There's some young guys need to develop. It's not as deep as maybe it might appear, and that depth is going to have to get developed and bring guys up. Kamonte Yao, I think, is going to be a good player in there and be able to help us. He's just injured right now, not practicing.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Jeff, can you give us your overall assessment of what you've seen over this first week and a half?
I think guys are practicing really hard, giving great effort. I like the energy. I think our guys realize how important these practices are. I think maybe to be expected, there's some mistakes. We're only 6 days in, and there's a lot of installation in. So we're calling a lot of different things on defense. We've got a lot of different plays on offense that we're working on. So there's some mistakes being made. But I think some good individual performances, particularly by the guys who have more experience, and I just see a team that is that's really kind of working their way into becoming the 2021 team. The personality and who this team will be, and the personality this team will take on, that's still developing right now. The leadership that's developing, that guys are having to step up where other leaders who graduated, left our program, are gone. Other guys are stepping up into those roles, and all of that together kind of makes a team. So we're not there yet, but I'm pleased with what we're doing to this point.
Coach Aaron Summers here. For you, what would make this spring season be a success?
Stay healthy. With not having spring ball last year, we didn't have any spring injuries, and we got into the season with a fairly healthy football team. And I've talked a lot to our coaches about that. Just let's have interaction and let's compete, but let's be really smart about the way we practice and try to keep people from getting hurt, so that we have everybody to go into fall camp like we did a year ago. We stayed healthier throughout the year. We were in much better condition. Just having had a chance to kind of build up our stamina and our strength over the summer without guys in the training room from spring ball. And that's what happens when guys get hurt in the spring. They don't get those June workouts or those June and early July workouts, and then they're trying to fit everything in and get themselves ready for preseason camp in 3 or 4 weeks, and that's not ideal. So spring ball, I think, is crucial for us to learn to as was asked, Coach Woody being able to get more of the defense installed than we did a year ago, and for us to evaluate and find out a lot about the young guys, and for the young players to develop on our football team. But there's also that risk of getting hurt. So that to me, if we can get out of spring fairly healthy, it'll be a success. Keep my fingers crossed.
Thanks.
Jeff, can you go through some of the position groups and what you're seeing so far, and anybody emerging in some of those groups?
I think probably each one of the position groups has a young guy or a guy that hasn't had as much experience, or even a veteran player who really is starting to come into his own. And that's a lot of position groups to kind of call out. But I'm pleased with our guys and how hard they're working. There's competition at every position, and that's very healthy for our football team, for guys to not feel safe at their position, that there's somebody else that's practicing well enough, that's talented enough to beat me out if I don't play my best. And so good, healthy competition, I think, is good for any team.
Coach, just going to ask you about obviously the quarterback position. You've got 6 or more players listed going into spring. Who has shown a good spring? Is there any player that you might move to another position?
The good news for us is that we've got several quarterbacks on our roster who've started games for us. Jabari Laws isn't going in any live reps, but he is taking reps in practice. And obviously, you know, we had a lot of confidence in him a year ago when he got injured, enough so that he was the starter. And I think he can do everything we ask of a quarterback. We got Christian Anderson, who started games for us, Tyler, who we saw down the stretch last year, play so well, Cade Ballard, who started games, Jamel Jones. All 5 of those guys we feel very good about. And then there's some young guys that we're bringing up and trying to get ready. We did move Delshawn Traylor from quarterback to slot to see if he could compete over there, because just the line is going to be too long for him to be able to get reps at quarterback, and the lines were a little bit shorter at slot, so we slid him over there, and he's improving. We'll see how he does as we go through the rest of the spring.
Coach, how do you feel like in your recruiting, you have the players now, you have depth at positions? Do you feel like your recruiting has brought in the players that you've hoped to have at West Point?
I think recruiting will always be somewhat the same here. We bring in a lot of players. We have to do it that way here. We don't have a traditional scholarship, but everybody's on scholarship, so it makes it easier for us to bring in more people. And the recruiting is one piece of it. We try to identify the guys we think are good enough players that have the intellect and the work ethic to be able to handle the rigors of the academics here, and have the moral and ethical standards and the leadership and professionalism to be commissioned as officers in the Army. And it's our duty to bring in young men that fit all of all of that criteria. Just you can have a guy that's a really professional guy who's a good leader and very smart, and if he's not a good enough football player, he's going to have a tough time helping our football team. You have a guy that's a very talented football player, but if he can't do it academically and doesn't have the leadership, the desire to be an officer, he's not going to be around very long. So from that standpoint, we've got to identify as many young men as we can, get them in here, get them into our program, do a great job of retaining them, keeping them here, and developing them while they are here. And I think our staff does a great job. It's not an exact science, and there are plenty of guys every year that really become outstanding players for us. And then there are some guys who struggle to play because there just are other players ahead of them, and they can't move their way up the depth chart enough. So I think it'll always be that way. I never or I assume that we will never be more talented than most teams that we play. And that doesn't mean we won't have guys that are more talented than the guy that they line up across from. We do. We have some guys that are very talented, that when they line up across from the people they play against, they are a more talented player. But collectively as a team, I don't know if we can ever get there. I assume that we won't. So by assuming that, it forces me and our staff to work really, really hard to develop our players and to maximize their potential, so that we don't count on talent alone. It's toughness and it's effort and it's the fundamentals and attention to detail that make us the team we are. And so I always want to have a team like that. So bringing in guys that fit that in terms of their personality and their temperament as a player is a huge part of recruiting for us as well. But I will tell you, our staff works incredibly hard at it. We've got a great recruiting staff off the field that puts the time in doing that, and hopefully we'll continue to bring in good young men. I really like our team right now, and I'm excited about the guys we got coming in to join us in the fall.
Thank you.
Jeff, just a couple words about some of the kids we talked to earlier. Julian Mcduffie and Nolan Cockrell, a few words about them.
Julian is our fastest player, very talented player. He's injured right now, but certainly he's played a lot of football for us, and we're counting on him to be a big part of our defense. I just really like him as an athlete. If he was a a little better at catching kicks or, kick returns and punts, I would certainly try to put him back there because he's dynamic when he gets the ball and dynamic when he's out there in space and can really turn it loose. The guy can fly, and he's a fast player. And we don't have a bunch of guys that I say that about, but he's one of them. And then Nolan Cockrell. I'm so glad he's on our football team. He's tough. He's everything that I just described to Ken that we're looking for in a prospect. He's a really good football player. He's really smart, does very well in school. He's professional. He's tough. He's going to be a great Army officer. But he's a leader and a competitor and a winner on our football team. And he's tough enough and talented enough to win one-on-one battles with, I think, whoever we play against.
Mm-hmm. And Connor Bishop and Ryan Duran.
So Connor, really just so pleased with how he's developed and come along. We're really excited about him and how he's improved. Even playing through the year last year, just got better as the season went along. So I think he's really established himself as our center. Obviously, you got some other guys that played there, but he's the guy there. Ryan Duran, just so happy to see him make all those plays at the kicking game last year. He's a guy for the first 2 years. He's a really tall, long player. And last summer, he just kind of, I don't know, something, and it might be even back into last January after we finished the 2019 season, just saw something change in him. There was this sense of urgency that I recognized. Coach Hughes, our strength coach, recognized in him, and he's really improved probably more over the last year than he had the first 2 years he was here. So blocking those kicks gained him some confidence, and we played him a lot on defense, and I'm really anticipating some good things from him this fall.
How's the kicking game coming along?
We are glad to get a chance to be out there this spring, which we didn't last spring, and work the kicking game, not just for the kickers and the snappers and those guys, the punters, but just the entire kicking game. Coach Saturnio did an amazing job this year. Our statistics, just where we finished from a national standpoint, where we ranked, maybe the best season we've had as a kicking unit since I've been here. Certainly leading the nation in block kicks, but just every phase. I think, our guys really take a lot of pride in it, and I think a lot of that has to do with his leadership, Coach Saturnio's leadership, and how energized he gets our football team about playing special teams. The specialists themselves obviously got those guys coming back. Moretsky to kick PATs. We'll search for a kickoff guy. We were using, we had Sawyers, who was a senior and graduated, so we'll have to figure out who that's going to be. But Tally is really having a good spring so far, and I think Zach Harding's one of the best punters in the country, and I've nominated him for all the national awards as a punter because, he's got the body and he's got the stats and he gets the height and the hang time on kicks. Very talented player, and we'll have a new snapper, but I think those guys are. I think Aguilar and Sesniak are going to do a really good job with that. So really pleased with that group, and it's nice to have a coach, Coach Saturnio, being able to coach those guys full time, all practice long.
Coach, also on your special teams, Terrell Robinson returned a lot of kickoffs and punts for you last year. A player with speed, and he also showed a lot on offense. How do you see his role growing into this year?
We've got a desire to get him the ball as often as we can, and the kick returns was just another way to do that. We fair catch a lot of kickoffs, and really those are determined based on whether we think we can get the ball out past the 25 or not. And we've got some criteria that we go into each game with to decide that. But he probably didn't get a chance to return as many kickoffs as if we just said, hey, just return every one of them. But that's not the formula for winning football games or putting yourself in good field position. We may not have been one of the top teams in the country in kickoff returns, but we were one of the top teams in the country for best field position after a kickoff, like 32.4 yard line, which is that's a big gain past the 25. So when he does have a chance to return it, I really think he's good enough to get us a good return and take it the distance. He's got the speed. He's another guy. He's not as fast, probably flat out as Julian Mcduffie, but maybe as quick or quicker, and great feet. He's a physical, tough player. He's built different than a fast guy like Julian Mcduffie, but they're both built for their positions. So I hope that we can get him the ball more often than we did a year ago, and we're certainly going to make attempts to do that.
How do you see his role on offense? He seemed like the defense has started to focus on him very quickly last year.
Oh, it wasn't hard to pay attention to him after the first couple of games. He did so many great things and had a lot of good runs and making people miss. And he got the oohs and ahs out of the crowd early on, and it kind of brought the attention to him right away. But the great thing is I think we've got a lot of really talented players there that are good with the ball. Brandon Walters, Ijon Marshall, Brahim Murphy, AJ Howard's not practicing this spring with an injury. Hopefully we'll get him back, but I think he's really good with the football. So there's other guys that can carry the ball there. I think people took notice of him because of his skill set, and certainly we did, and had a desire to get the ball to him, and so he got it more often than those other guys, and I think that's why everybody started to pay attention to him. It's hard to key on a guy playing slot in our offense. It's hard to say that, hey, that guy's lined up over there, so the ball's coming this way. That guy's lined up there, and this is what's going to happen. It's really hard to get a beat on us that way. We don't telegraph it and put him as the pitchback all the time, or him aligned in certain places, and only when he aligns in those places does he get the ball. And we can't do that. If we do that, we're just helping the defense.
Jeff, when you work on the next couple practices, or do you do more of the same?
It's the same. We're working fundamentals and our assignments. I mean, we want to get good at the things that we do, and if we try to dive off into something else and do other things, then we're really paying attention to things that then aren't as important.